Gunnison Hoffa-Day, the Committee on the Environment, Revenue, and Taxation Procurement is calling this virtual oversight hearing to order. It is now 9:09 a.m. on Thursday, November 12th, 2020. A notice of this morning's oversight hearing is provided to senators, stakeholders, and local media on November 4th to meet the 5-day notice and November 9th for the 48-hour notice, thus meeting the requirements of open government law. I'd like to acknowledge the senators that are here today. Senator Perez, Senator Joe San Agustin, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Pito Terlahi, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, Senator Tello Taitigui, Senator James Moylan, and Speaker Tina Minnie Barnes. My apologies. I was going by visuals. So the purpose of this oversight hearing is to get an update from the Department of Revenue and Taxation regarding income tax refunds, economic stimulus, Azura Imangafa, health and safety building updates, personnel training and technology, compliance regulatory updates, customer service, and any other additional comments. The rules of conduct for this virtual oversight hearing is as follows. The host of this hearing will mute all participants until called upon by the chair. Virtual background should not be utilized during these hearings, and participants' face must be visible at all times. When called to speak, please ensure that you are unmuted and that you're speaking into the microphone. Members of the committee wishing to speak may indicate their desire to do so in the in-app chat feature. The order of questioning will begin with the chair and shall be completed in the line of questioning upon request by senators or upon recognition upon the chair. Each member will be allowed to pose a question to DR Department of Revenue and Taxation for one round, and will be provided with another round if needed. Please note the time frame and number of items on the agenda, and I ask questions to be kept short to allow members a chance to speak. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this rule of conduct will result in the removal from the public hearing by the host. So prior to the start of this, we had Sergeant at Arms swear in both the Director and Deputy Director of Department of Revenue and Taxation. And I would like to thank Director Daphne Shimizu for reserving this time this morning, as well as Deputy Director Michelle Santos for their time as well, and all the work. So I believe there is a presentation that Department of Revenue and Taxation is going to provide at this time. And perhaps if we can open up questions for each item to the senators, so that way it can maybe facilitate the discussion. And yeah, so I would like to recognize Director Shimizu. Thank you so much for being here.
Hoffa-Day Honorable Senator Sabina Perez, Chairperson for the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation and Procurement. Hoffa-Day also to Speaker Tina Minnie Barnes, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, Senator Tello Taitigui, Senator James Moylan, Senator Pito Terlahi, Senator Amanda Shelton, Senator Joe San Agustin, and Senator Perez Terlahi, and all other members of the 35th Guam Legislature. For the record, I'm Daphne Mansipit Shimizu, and I'm the Director of the Guam Department of Revenue and Taxation. Joining me on this Zoom call this morning is Deputy Director Michelle Santos. Before I begin, I would like to say thank you to Deputy Director Santos and to our entire team. And I would like to acknowledge the hard work, commitment, and dedication of our team to serve our people. This morning, we do have a brief PowerPoint presentation. Once all right with you, Madam Chair, I will begin if
yes,
you will
please.
allow me.
Yes, please.
Okay, I did provide the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you so much, Evan. Okay. All right, so if you'll turn to the next slide, please. So on this slide, you'll see the agenda items that were listed on the oversight agenda that was provided to the public, and that was on income tax refunds, EIP, and AIM status payments, the health, safety, and building updates, personnel training and technology, compliance and regulatory, customer service, and any additional comments. Please move to the next slide. So on this slide, we've highlighted some dates which we believed were of importance to the EIP program. It's important to note that when we hit May 13th, 2020, which was just about 9 days from the time the EIP implementation plan was approved, that our team processed almost $96 million in EIP program payments. And with the assistance of the Treasurer of Guam, was able to get those payments out to our people. To date, we have received a total of $150,213,000. Of that, approximately $146 million has been paid out as of November 6, and that equates to 82,000 payments, or 96.6% of the funds that we've received from the U.S. Treasury. The payments required to be made by December 31, 2020 for economic impact payments are actually advances of a 2020 income tax credit. So if an individual missed the filing dates for EIP, they will still be able to file and receive EIP if they are eligible and they've not already received a payment when they file their 2020 tax return in 2021. If additional funding is required for the program, we will work with the IRS and the U.S. Treasury to obtain such funding. There is already a process that's in place for this, as we've already actually received, I believe, 3 payments from them. And if you'll please move to the next slide. On this slide, you'll see some AIM program highlights, and AIM is Aduda Yamangafa, the Help for Families program. Our team did spend a significant amount of time reviewing the original AIM law to ensure that we could address any potential processing issues or any potential issues in the revised law, which was signed into law on September 14th, 2020. DRT implemented the AIM program on September 29th, 2020. That's when we actually began to receive applications online and also through our Dropbox and mail. That was about a week ahead of the mandated deadline to implement the program. We have made 1 payment so far, and that was on October 30, 2020, when we paid out 305 AIM program payments totaling $172,500. Today is the deadline for the AIM program applications to be submitted to Department of Revenue and Taxation. As of November 9, we'd received 1,147 applications, and I'm proud to say that of those 740, or 64.5, were actually submitted online. And if you could please move to the next slide. On this slide, you can see an update on our income tax refunds. As of November 6, we processed and paid out refunds through May 6, 2020 filing date for those that are A status as of that time. As of the refund liability report, which we did submit to the legislature on November 10 for October 2020 activity, we had approximately 63,000 total 2019 forms 1040 were filed, and of those there were estimated unprocessed returns of about 2,900. If you could please move to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about our health and safety at our building. In particular, I wanted to share with our legislative body our compliance and safety plan. We actually have implemented a compliance and safety plan. This one is as of September 27. Our compliance and safety plan, of course, have had to, correlate with the executive orders and the public health guidelines that were in place. This particular one, which was issued and put together on September 27, in anticipation of us opening on September 28th by appointment only, in line with Executive Order 2020-34. This was actually provided to our administrators and supervisors. And so when we moved to a by appointment only situation, we had put this together so it's clear exactly what the guidelines are. And I'll just read these to you just real quickly. Only taxpayers with appointments are allowed to access the building. Every branch is responsible for escorting taxpayers throughout the appointment process. All taxpayers, as usual, are required to wear face masks. During this particular situation where we're by appointment only, we actually had indicated in our guidance that individuals actually are not allowed to line up outside our building, but are to remain in their vehicles. We actually have 2 controlled access points where taxpayers and other customers of our agency are able to access or come into our building. And that's on the left side of our building at the front motor carrier door, and on the right side at regulatory. At each CAP, we do have a compliance and safety station where taxpayers are logged in compliance with the public health guidelines. There's a temperature check, a hand sanitizing done. We do that basic health check where we ask various health questions, and there is a social distancing reminder. And if you could please move to the next slide. This is just a kind of recap. Of course, when somebody does come in, we do have to make sure that we log them in, not only when they come in, but when they leave. So of course, our branch representatives are required to escort our taxpayers or customers that we're serving to the exit. And of course, we have to make sure that for contact tracing purposes, and so we have a good understanding of who has come through our building, that we indicate when they depart. Also, our branch supervisors are responsible for ensuring desks and workstations are sanitized after each taxpayer appointment. This is something, and with regards to the guidelines, employees are also required to check in at the employee check-in station on a daily basis, where the same guidelines are followed for hand sanitizing, temperature check, etc. We actually had implemented a system of checking in, meaning that our employees had to check in even prior to us opening up to the public by appointment only, even prior to the public health guidelines that were set forth advising so. So I'm proud of our team for really being proactive at determining, at putting together guidelines for safety and health. We have also in certain areas indicated or put together maximum occupancy levels so that, places like a photocopier machine where there may be, people kind of congregating, or conference rooms as well, that it's clear how many people are allowed to be in a room, and also, in certain what are usually like eating areas, we've also tried to make sure that it's clear and marked off certain areas so that people know again how many people maximum can be in an area, again for their health and safety. Regarding hand sanitizer, gloves, and alcohol, DRT has been able to receive stock from Guam Homeland Security, and that was something that we get periodically as requested by our RAC, or our representative to Homeland Security. We actually do have one individual in our agency who has completed the Johns Hopkins University COVID-19 contact tracing course. They completed it on October 27. That was something that was important to us. And of course, we want to, have other people also be able to attend that course as well. That's important because, as we know, public health is very challenged. Our frontliners have a lot happening. And so we wanted to be able to have people within our agency who are actually, who are competent in the area of contact tracing. When DRT has had potential cases of exposure, we have actually had our own internal team work to sanitize our areas, and we make sure that those areas are sanitized prior to any other employees entering our building. And if you could please move to the next slide. In terms of personnel, of course, it has been challenging. We have worked to obtain DOL program employees to assist with certain administrative tasks. Some of our groups, for example, I think today we do have people in our BPT section, our income tax section, our driver's license section, and perhaps even our director's office. I believe at one point we also had some people in our business license section who were assisting. We've also been working with the Office of Technology to try to set up a remote call center so that we have an area off-site where we can have our team members access the system and work to answer calls, and that will help to alleviate some of the stress that we're currently seeing because of the increased or the huge volume of calls and emails that we have. And as you know, we are also working to procure equipment so that our team can more effectively telework, as of course our employees are challenged in accessing emails and responding to inquiries. With regards to procurement, our Chief of Administration retired as of September 30, and our administrative staff usually in charge of procurement has actually been out for a bit. In the meantime, we did put together a small team to assist with procurement efforts. We actually had a management analyst in our office who was previously our budget analyst at BBMR and who moved to DRT and was serving as our acting BPT supervisor since about the beginning of the year. This individual has been detailed as acting chief of administration. She's currently working on putting documents together for the various items that we're working to procure. With regards to an attorney, we've obviously had challenges in hiring one. We do have a very good relationship with the Office of Attorney General, however, but we are hopeful that we'll find an attorney soon. We've been working to identify potential prospects for the position. The funding of the attorney, I believe, was initially 300,000. I have to clarify, but I believe that the funding is now 150,000. And because we're a line agency, it's also my understanding, based on discussions with the Office of Attorney General, that we're not allowed to hire an attorney by contract, and that is by law. And that's something that, if needed, can be clarified further with the Office of Attorney General. With regards to technological updates, I don't have an actual total amount at this point, and that's something, Senator Perez, that I will work to make sure we provide to you. I do believe that to date, we've issued at least one PO for an additional 80 workstations for our team members. As you and the rest of the legislative body may know, for fiscal year 2020, of course, we're very grateful that our legislative body did support us procuring 80 workstations, most especially since a lot of our team members have systems that are like over a decade old and even older. And so in FY 2020, we were able to procure using the FY 2020 budget. For this coming year, our team did work with GSA, and I believe we were able to get a PO issued for an additional 80 so that we can really truly work to get our team to have the equipment that they need so that they could do the work that they need to do to serve. With regards to our upgrades, we've been working with the Office of Technology, and meeting with Mr. Frank Lujan, who is the director of the Office of Technology, and his team. We've actually been meeting with them since June. On the procurement side, our acting COA has also been communicating with other agencies regarding procurement and the process. And in addition, the Chief Procurement Officer of GSA has also been working with us on our procurement. Regarding DOA's procurement of its system, both DOA and DRT support an integrated system. And as per Director Byrne, although of course, I defer to him to make sure that the details are correct, but this is a specification that I believe was included in whatever procurement that they were doing or are in the process of doing. And if you could please turn to the next slide. With regards to compliance and regulatory, this is an update on the cigarette stamp tax. DRT is currently working in conjunction with the OAG in the drafting of rules and regs for the implementation of the current cigarette stamp tax law. There is an issue in the current law which indicates a conflict with the bonded warehouse process. There are also recent proposed amendments to the current law to address certain conflicts, and that our team has advised me may impact the rules and regs drafting process. Aside from the administrative and taxation process of rules and regs, DRT and OAG have also indicated that it's very important to emphasize the enforcement, fines and penalties for importers, wholesalers, retailers, and individuals related to violations of the law. And if you could please turn to the next slide. And in terms of customer service, since the beginning of the public health emergency in March 2020, DRT has worked to issue guidance on its services. On this slide, you'll see, just kind of the history of the information that we've put out, which we put out guidance in our what we call our COVID-19 services series. So we're actually up to volume 8, but you'll notice that, even though we've first went into public health emergency, I believe March 15 or 16, we did actually issue our first set of guidance in March 18th, which was that week that we first went into our public health emergency. So we've been doing our best to be proactive and communicating to the community on what's going on with our agency, of course, to the best of our abilities. Some of the volumes that are important, all of these volumes, by the way, are available on our websites in the COVID-19 section, but some of the volumes that I think are important to kind of highlight. In May 17, of course, when we went into PCOR 2, I believe we went into PCOR 2 prior to the week before May 17, but we issued guidance advising of the the fact that we were going to be open to the public, and we were going to open to the public on May 18th. So we issued our volume 3 at that time. In August 18th, we did release our volume 5, and that was because, of course, there was a declaration of pandemic condition of readiness 1. And so, of course, we had shut down our customer-facing services to the public at that time. As of September 27th, we did issue volume 7. That was relative to instituting the Safer at Home advisory. And of course, at that point, we had to adapt our services to an appointment-only format. And because of that, we had to advise, of course, the community how that would work and what the guidance was. The current volume that we have, and it's still current at this time, is volume 8. Our team was going to have to revisit them just to make sure dates and other things are relevant. Of course, as there's a need to make updates, we do our best to do so. And if you could please turn to the next slide. Also wanted to share a few highlights of some of our branches and just kind of a timeline on them. In our driver's license branch, in particular, of course, we had recognized that there was a need for additional service times. And so back in June, we did announce that we would have Saturday walk-in schedules, and we had scheduled them for June 20, 27, July 11, 15, August 1, 8, and 15. Of course, in the month of August, we had some challenges because of going back into PCOR 1, and so August 15 and 8 did not happen. But we did open on July 3, and that's because, again, even though it wasn't originally scheduled, we recognized the importance and the need for our services. Some things as well that we had done was we did launch a temporary on-island mail-in renewal application that can also be used for replacements of non-real ID compliant driver's licenses. And that was important because this is the first time that we'd actually done this, where we have had a mail-in form for a renewal of a driver's license for on Guam. We also have since then issued a mail service form for those people who have passed their written exam and who are in need of their permits, so that as well those people can get those permits. And so those are a couple of things that we have issued and that we've worked on. As well, it's been very important for us to make sure that, because of the limited capacity of our ability to serve and to be able to issue driver's licenses, that we did issue an automatic extension of all Guam driver's licenses and Guam IDs through February 2021. And again, that was something we had done earlier, but we extended that date, the validity date of those licenses on October 9. In our business license branch, in particular, the Business License Permit Center is probably the area that's most impacted. On September 27, we launched the Form BL01, which is a new business license application. And that was important because during the prior situation where we had gone into PCOR 1 back in March, although we were not calling it PCOR 1 at that time, for the couple of months that we were shut down to the public. And then again, when we did come back on May 18th, actually every time that we have been basically not been able to serve the public face-to-face, we've had issues with issuing new business licenses. And, of course, our mandate is to make sure that we can license and, of course, enforce. But, and we recognize the need to make sure that we could give people that opportunity. We, worked on that. I believe I was meeting with my team on September 3, which is Labor Day, to make sure that we could have a process. Of course, we're finding that there are some challenges with processing, and like other areas where we've had and are continuing to have challenges, those are things that we're continuing to work to address and improve upon. But, even outside of the public health emergency, of course, it has been a challenge for us. And, but again, we're going to continue to strive to do our best to serve and to make sure we address any gaps which we may have in our services. And if you could please move to the next slide. And so, Madam Chair, here I just wanted to kind of reiterate what is our mandate. And 11 GCA Chapter 1, Section 1103 states that DRT exists. Our why is that we are here to enforce tax laws and collect, as well as license and do registration and enforcement. Madam Chair and the members of the 35th Guam Legislature, it has been a very challenging time, of course, not just for DRT, but for entire island community, our nation, and our world. We have been praying for a vaccine, and we hope that as GMH Administrator Lillian Posadas mentioned, that this new vaccine, which was announced just a few days ago, will help to bring some sense of normalcy back to our lives very soon. I again want to say thank you to the DRT team for their continued commitment to serve our people. And if you could please just hit enter 2 times, Evan. And I wanted to share that for me, at least, DRT does not just mean Department of Revenue and Taxation. It actually touched me very deeply when our Employee Association president and her officers came up with another meaning for DRT, which is doing right together. And this is a motto that I hope that our team, as we work to operate to serve our people, that we continue to keep very close at heart. And with this, Madam Chair, I would just like to say again, Si Duas Masi, to you for this opportunity and to your committee for this opportunity to allow us to go ahead and share some information about Rev and Tax. And of course, Deputy Director Santos and I are here present at this hearing so that we can go ahead and answer any questions to the best of our ability that you or any member of the committee may have. Si Duas Masi.
Sidus Masi, Director Shimizu, and Deputy Director Michelle Santos. Yes, and I realize the tremendous amount of work that DRT has done, in just processing what you guys normally do, and on top of that, having to, deal with these other mandates and the EIP payments. That was a huge task. I think what Department of Labor is doing. Department of Revenue and Taxation is almost handling, the heavy weight of a lot of these implementation of a lot of these federal funds that our people really rely on. But I do want to commend you guys for, processing majority of income tax returns that were filed this year. To date, out of the 62,000, according to the report that you provided, out of the 62,859 files, income taxes that were filed, the majority, about 96%, have been already processed by DRT. And most of them have been paid out, but there are just a couple that are awaiting payment, and unprocessed, as far as unprocessed, is about 2,899 out of the 62,000. So thank you for all that effort. So in looking at this income tax refund report, so I did notice on the business filings, the status filings. So if you, I don't know if this is an error, but in 2018, so I was comparing the last income tax statement with the most recent one, and if you look at the amount, so in 2018, currently there was 4,572 taxes filed for business taxes in 2018. And so the amount awaiting payment right now, is that correct? 33 million? Is that correct? 33,410,000?
Oh, thanks, Senator. That's something I'll have to confirm, and thank you for pointing that out. Hold on just a second. Let me look at the prior. Yeah, you know what, I'm looking also at the prior month, and I'm seeing it in the 30 million range. It could be due to many reasons though, ma'am, actually. So these are, if you look at the bottom left of the page, there's a little asterisk, and that's because these are for all accepted, error, and suspend. So there could be situations where we may have some returns that are in some type of suspend status or error, and or maybe some of our agent or branches are working with the organizations on, but I will confirm that because you're correct, ma'am, it is significant.
I was looking at
Actually, no, ma'am, sorry, which one are you looking at? The very bottom?
Well, yeah, the bottom right side. So H, on item H, 2018 refunds owed.
Oh, yes. So actually, Senator Perez, I believe this is total for, I'd like to say this is total for all of our refunds, including, I have to confirm that, ma'am, because it does seem significant. I'm sorry. So if you could just let me confirm that with the team to make sure that that 30 million in the Form 1120s or the business returns is correct.
Yeah, because I was looking at the September one that was sent out. It was at 4.6 million, and then it jumped to 33 million. For this
Yeah.
one. I'm curious why that is.
Okay. It could be an error. We'll confirm that to you, Senator.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I'm also looking at the income report. So it looks like we will need 131 million for income tax refunds for 2019. So that's something to consider in the next budget cycle, whether we need to increase the amount. But in regards to interest, so I've seen interest is increased, from previous years. What is the reason for that, the increase in interest?
Well, probably if you're just looking at the actual report itself and you're seeing that the interest amounts are higher than prior years, it's because that's still outstanding. If that's what you mean, Senator Perez, because any other years already the interest has been paid out. Is that what you're referring to? For example, the 0.3 and the 0.12?
Yes, yeah. I mean,
Yes, yeah. So it's because really there's not a whole lot left to pay for those years, and so the interest will be less on those than in the current year where there's significantly more.
yeah, I'm just wondering if we can reduce that. It's kind of like when you pay your credit card bill, you want to make sure that you reduce those charges. That's
Right.
okay. Yeah, so I think that's all my questions for this report. I just want to open it up to my colleagues if they have questions regarding the income tax report. Senator Therese Talahi, do you have any questions regarding this report?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Shimizu and Deputy Director for that presentation. Very thorough. So I have a couple of questions. So one is just back on the refunds that we're talking about right now. So yeah, I also read the report to show that there's 33.8 million processed still owed for 2019 returns. And if you compare that to the same period last year, there was only 7 million owed at this point last year in tax returns. So I just want to commend you for your processing of these tax returns. And it's been this way consistently since you became the director, that they've been processed and waiting payment. So I just want to thank you for that. I'm concerned about that amount also, so if you can verify it, because we know that the Section 30 money has already come in, and we were hoping that that would take care of the bulk. But it did note that you had already, I think they've paid up to May, so they've covered the April filings. But I know we extended the filing to July, so I'm just curious. Yeah. The other thing is, recently in the news, you reported. You were, making a presentation to an organization, and you reminded them that you only have 4 compliance officers for all the different compliance mandates that you have. Are you not allowed to hire more? Because I know that we've tried to give DRT more money, but did you prioritize other areas, I guess, or what is the status of these? Are you trying to get more right now, or are we limited to the fiscal year 2021?
I believe that, thank you, Senator Terlahi, for that question. I believe that in the FY 2021 budget that we did actually include, I believe, 4 more officers, not just to take care of our current mandates, but also in anticipation of the cannabis rules and regs as well, because that's something that this group is going to also be enforcing on. So it's ABC, it's business license issues. Of course, they also assist with bonded, and then they also will be working on cannabis as well. So we did, I believe, put in to our head count additional 4. But of course, we have to look at our budget and make sure that funding can still occur for those areas.
Yes, and begin to process those as soon as possible, I hope. Yeah, I know you have a huge compliance mandate. And then my final question for now, Madam Chair, hopefully we get another round, but is on the TEFF, the Educational Facilities Fund. It's tracking, it looks like we're short 4.3 million, or it was short 4.1 million for FY20. based on the October report. And just, can you just tell us why that is? This is real property taxes. So I was, I guess I'm trying to get an explanation. How is the pandemic affecting real property taxes as opposed, that should have been a steady source. Yes.
Thank you again, Senator Terlahi. On the issue of real property taxes, just to share with you, what we did in the end of 2019 was something that we hadn't done, I think, in 5 years, where we actually sent out notices to those individuals or organizations that had outstanding tax liabilities for real property tax. So we've actually, again, in the prior year, worked to address the issue of that difference between what was projected and what was actually being received. Our team, of course, one of our main mandates is collections. We recognize that collections, and actually in anything we do, we have to be deliberate. There has to be a strategy. Our team actually since summertime has been talking about collection strategy. We've already have a bit of a strategy in terms of addressing the issue of, well, all collections, but in particular as well, real property tax collections. Historically, we actually have not had a collections person for real property. We actually have someone that we've detailed into that area. And our hope is that that individual will be able to assist with real property tax collections. And so, we're doing our best to try to collect on all real property tax outstanding, and also, if there's any older years that are still able to be collected on.
So do you anticipate this will be collected? It wasn't an overestimation. It's still pretty accurate. We just need to collect it.
I believe that when we did the calculation, and of course there was that million or over language that had to be clarified in last year. I believe that when we did the calculation and we looked at how much we would receive, that the amount seemed reasonable. And again, I can go back and look at it, but that was based on our understanding of the calculation. I believe that we did have reported on that a few times during some oversight hearings as well.
All right. Okay, so I'm glad to hear we're still anticipating this amount. Yeah, because we were counting on that. All right.
As far as I know, ma'am, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Senator. Speaker Munya Barnes, if you have any questions regarding the income tax report. I would like to kind of continue on the agenda. There's other questions too as well, as far as economic stimulus and Azuda Imangafa. So yeah, if we can kind of break it up in that way, I appreciate that.
So Madam Chair, are we going in rounds just based on the income tax, or can we ask anything in general for revenue tax?
Yeah, I was hoping to have a breakdown. So yeah, if you have anything questions for the income tax, then we can move on to the next sections. Because yeah, there is compliance stuff that I would like to ask and when we get to that section. So yeah, I'm just kind of breaking it down for now.
Okay. So based on that, I know that revenue tax has been working with the governor's office, and so have we, and the office of OTEC in reference to automation. And I wanted to see if Mrs. Shimizu can share with us any updates on the RFP proposals, or how can we utilize CARE fundings to look at the opportunity for automation as we look at the process of income tax and all the processes that revenue tax have to work with. Have they looked at those provisions, and can she share me any kind of update?
Speaker Munya Barnes. Regarding our working on automation and modernization, that's something that, of course, there's several factors, and I know Senator Perez can definitely appreciate this in terms of being ahead of procurement. So, of course, there's several factors that come into play as we work to try to modernize. Some things that we've been working on, to kind of backtrack, as we know, the U.S. Treasury has issued guidance on the use of the CARES funding, and there is specific guidance that advises on, that defines how you become or determine if an expense is eligible. My understanding, and of course I could defer to Director Byrne and Director Carlson on this. However, my understanding is that whatever for the CARES monies, that the product will have to be actually delivered or completed by the time we hit December 30. Our focus in terms of enhancing our systems has been in a few areas, and I'll just share with you things that I've been working on directly with both our vendors and also with our procurement people. On the area of driver's license, we've been working with our vendor. We do have a specific vendor in that area. Of course, as you know, we have had several problems. We're working to set things up so that we are able to have driver's licenses be done for renewals to be done online, the same as Guam IDs, also conversions of driver's licenses from permits to intermediate and from intermediate to full licenses. That's something I've been working on with regards to automating that area. On the business license side, as you know, of course, there were probably about 20,000 business licenses that get renewed every year. And, it's great that we do already have a process for renewal of business licenses online. However, for new business license applications, I've talked about this before, the receipt of any type of documents like applications for business licenses and even the processing of mail service for driver's licenses, we recognize that to have paper-based forms that we process is not ideal. But we also recognize that where we want to get to, where again, driver's licenses can be renewed online, Guam IDs can be renewed online. You don't have to necessarily come in for those. We knew that we needed to give our people options, and that's why we are where we are today. But we are working toward again on our driver's license section, on our business license section as well, to have our business license applications, the new business license applications, to be done online, so that, of course, we can continue to, so we can work to help save lives. We can work to reduce exposure to each other, so that we can, reduce the amount of people that are exposed to this novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19. So driver's license, business license. We're also working on enhancing our BPT system, so that way we can make sure we have, of course, more of our people have the capability to file BPT forms online for all of the GRT forms. So we're working on that. We've been meeting with programmers on that. And, I've also talked with the team about additional enhancements to our Form 1040s. Something we didn't announce was that for the Form 1040s, for the ones that currently can be filed online, we did do a bit of an expansion. Originally, the Form 1040s that are filed online, you couldn't have a dependent. You could not have any other income outside of, I think, a W-2. We've expanded what's able to be filed online, and that we had done, I believe, over maybe about a month ago now. And we're continuing to work to expand those. Where we want to get to, and again, thank you, Speaker, for talking about modernization. Of course, where we want to get to is something similar to what I've shared before about what I believe is a success story in our vehicle registration online renewals. We're in fiscal year 2017, we had about 4,000 online renewals for vehicle registration. In fiscal year 2018, I think it increased by a couple thousand to 6. In fiscal year 19, it increased further until I think it was like just shy of 9,000 vehicle registrations that were renewed online. In fiscal year 2020, as of August 20 or so, around that time, which was indeed where we still had 1 month left in the fiscal year, we had 20,646 vehicle registrations renewed online. And so that means that was 12,000 less people that walked into our building. And so for us, I mean, if you even just kind of look at it and just, think it's a whole year, that's 1,000 less people that had to walk into our building every month on average. Of course, we have about 120,000 vehicles that we register every year, which for an island like ours is, I don't know how, it seems a little bit high. But, so if we're able to move, or get people to utilize some of our online services, but also enhance our services. So people who need new business licenses, people who are going to get their driver's license. And I think business license and driver's license probably are at this point seem to be probably our number 1 and number 2 items that we are constantly getting requests for at this time. that we get those online. And those are the efforts that we're taking on at this time, ma'am. I'm working directly on the system enhancements as well as on the procurement side to make sure, again, that we stay on track and that we're able to complete this project within the time frame that is necessary so that we can be successful at it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Daphne, on that. Madam Chair, I just want to know that I also got from Rev Tax for immediate release the volume 8 of the services that Rev Tax provides, and we get inundated on calls, and I'm hoping that Rev Tax could at least share that information on a channel that I'm hoping I can work with CORE to get that information also, and get permission to put it on ours so that people can have a place where they can go to do it online. We went from thousands to 20,000 now, so hopefully we can get more on board, but I think information and awareness is needed so we can work on that. But Madam Chair, I do have questions on the cigarette stamps, but I'll wait for that. I do have just one more question as it relates to a law that's supposed to take in effect on November 29, 2020. It's Senator Mary Torres's public law. I know she's not on, so I want to ask this just because unfortunately she couldn't make it, but it says that the public law 35101 was signed into law on October 29th, Ms. Daphne, and the law authorized a non-expiring Guam ID for Guam residents age 65 and older. And under the law, and like I said, it goes into the effect at the end of this month. Given the requirements for the lifetime ID, are the same requirements for the standard non-rural ID? How should Guam residents who wish to avail of this card go about applying for it? Have you had anything set up for that already?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So just so you know, and to share with the body, this is something that I'm glad that our team, as far as I know, I believe our supervisor had brought this up. And in terms of programming, I believe that the Office of Technology person who we deal with for our driver's license, that they are aware. And so, you know, that way we can make sure that we address the issue of the programming or whatever programming is involved. I don't have a form yet, ma'am, and I don't have the full information on it. But definitely we'll have to work to get to that, and apologies for not having it readily available, but we'll definitely make sure that that we provide that to the body.
So yeah, it's just knowing that the implementation timeline for that is November 29th, based on Senator Torres' law, and I was pretty sure she would have asked this question. But Madam, thank you, Ms. Daphne. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have some cigarette stamp questions, so I'll wait till that subject comes up and you afforded me that opportunity to ask the question. Sanamasi.
You're welcome, Speaker. Yeah, so I just want to go back to the agenda, which was, we were talking about income tax. Maybe I can expand to the stimulus as well as the Ajuda Imangafa. But some of the questions I have regarding the stimulus. So you were mentioning earlier that you were able to obtain additional funds. Can you explain a little bit about that? Because I think I was under the impression that we had a threshold or a limit. But you know, if you can explain what the guidance says in regards to as you process more tax returns, and you're finding that more individuals can avail themselves of the economic stimulus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, right, we had originally, I believe, received like $130 million, $134.8 million. And then later, as we had processed, because, you know, of course, we processed almost 100 million within, you know, I guess just a little bit over a week of the plan being passed, you know, of course, and we were processing very aggressively, I guess, to get monies out. At the point that we determined that we believe that the amount was not sufficient, I'd like to say summertime, we went back and we requested for additional funding. And so we went from, I think, having 134.8 million, as I recall, to now having 150.2 million that was received so far. We've paid out 146 million. There is a process to request. Of course, we do have to work with the the U.S. Treasury, they have an economist that reviews any of requests that we have, and how it works. And of course, so this is a new program, and what's very different, and especially about this program in comparison to other credits perhaps that have happened in the past, is that there is a payout to people who do not file a return. So, of course, the data that we have is on taxpayers, people who have filed a return, people who, who actually we have data on. What we couldn't contemplate, of course, was those people that had no filing requirement, which, of course, was allowed, they were allowed to file a non-filer form, which is the Guam EIP NF. And so, we saw, as we were working to process, we saw that there was significant amount of people who were considered non-filers, and it could be for many reasons. They could be purely Social Security, they could be purely federal benefit recipients and have no reason to file a return because they don't have income to report, or for whatever reason. But so those had not been contemplated. We tried to, of course, look at our history when we first had submitted our information to the Treasury for them to review. We tried to, of course, factor in what we thought would be the additional amount that would cover any people who may not be non-filers. But, again, as we saw already, we are at about $146 million of the 150, and and we're still seeing payments be made. So, it's a dynamic thing, Senator Perez. It's not something that's stagnant. I think the Treasury and the IRS recognize that, as long as we have valid claims, that we're going to continue to be able to submit for those, and they will continue to fund again as long as there are valid claims and we follow the proper process.
Right. Thank you, Daphne. So in one of your press releases, I believe, the deadline was October 15th. Is that correct for the non-filer form? So for those that filed late, for instance, they filed their tax return late, or weren't able to meet this deadline, could they still obtain? I guess also my concern too is for those that filed on the extended deadline of July of this year. Of course, DRT is given. I'm just wondering, what are the chances of those people that filed on the deadline? Will they still be able to? I mean, is there enough processing time for those to receive economic stimulus?
Okay, so, and thanks again, Senator Perez, for this question. Regarding, there's two different filings that perhaps, if I could kind of parse it out in that way. One of them is for the individuals that file a Form 1040. So for the individuals that file a Form 1040, I believe that we had actually indicated in our guidance that as long as you file by October 15, if you qualified, we would work to process so that we could get the payments out by the end of the year. That's still our target. That's what we're hoping to do. For the individuals who have filed or are non-filers, they file a EIP NF. For those individuals, the deadline on the IRS side was actually extended to November 21. DRT, our team, our Taxpayer Services Administrator, our Deputy Tax Commissioner, along with our Deputy Director, we met and we discussed, and we believe that it was warranted that we go ahead and give our non-filers as well on the local side the opportunity to submit through November 21. So we do have that as a deadline now for the non-filers. So as long as a non-filer files by November 21, that is the deadline to be able to receive the economic impact payment, again, which we're working to pay out by December 31.
Okay, that's good to know. So yeah, we definitely need to send out another press release on that one. So moving on to the Udzura Imangafa. So I believe there was 10 million that was set aside for this, and looking at your in your presentation, can we just go back to that slide and just take a look at the information there? Okay, so yeah, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this hearing, is because just to also get the word out that today is the deadline to apply, as well as to submit the documents, supporting documents. And so it looks as far, so you received 1,147 applications. So what is the amount? So generally, what is your projected amount thus far with the applications?
Um, Senator, it's difficult to tell, Senator Perez. Of course, we did 305 program payments, and that equated to 172,500. If we want to just do like an average, I don't know how many we'll receive today, because we're still waiting on to see how many we get. But we did, again, as of last week, received about a little bit over 1,100. So if we say, I mean, again, if we want to use an average, which we can, but again, it's difficult to say. I don't know if perhaps people may have been having a bit of a challenge in getting some information, especially those maybe who might have more dependents to be able to claim. But, just based on what we have 1,147. If we utilize the first set of payments as a basis to come up with an average, that brings us, and again, this is not scientific by any means. This is just trying to use an average and not even looking at kind of, I don't know how many of those applications or what the number of dependents is on the applications, but if you take 172,500 divided by 305, that's about $566 per is an average per application, I guess, if you want to call that. And then you multiply it by about 1,147. That brings us to about 650,000. Again, that was as of last week. I actually was contacted by several people who were continuing to try to get their documents together even yesterday. So, that's something, again, it's difficult to tell how much it's going to come out to. But I have been receiving calls for that. And again, I want to say I'm very grateful to the community for utilizing the online portion. And if you don't mind, I might also want to just say thank you as well to our mayors as well, because our Mayor's Council of Guam made sure that we not only had these forms and our EIP forms, but also passport forms available at their different mayor's offices.
Yes, thank you, Daphne. So if you can just kind of present to the listening audience what are the steps if they want to do it today?
Absolutely. You know what, if you get online to myguamtax.com, you actually can register at the login section and the kind of the mid left side, if you scroll down to the mid portion of the page on the left side of the page, you'll find a individual login section. You'll be able to register there. And when you register, you'll be able to go in and you'll find a link to, it's the form 3594 GU. That 3594 GU also has all the required documents for the Mengafa. So you can make sure that you have all of that. You can also email us at mengafa@revtax.guam.gov. That's MANGAFA at revtax.guam.gov. And our team, we have multiple people who are receiving that email at that email address. So I'm sure they'll do their best to get back to you if you have questions. But again, this particular program was meant to, of course, address the gap that we saw in the CARES Act when it was passed, and which did not cover those families who had dependents who were disabled of any age, and those families who had dependents who were ages 17 to 23 and in college. And as we know, for those families, the majority of people who have dependents who are college students, are still actually supporting those students. And so, grateful to, of course, our legislature and, of course, our governor and lieutenant governor for the support on that bill. And we hope that we're able to get out more payments to our people.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Daphne. And some of those supporting documents are, they require a little bit of work, like birth certificate. They have to show the relationship, whether you're the mother, the grandparent, you have to have the birth certificates for not only your child, but the grandchild, from the mother to the grandchild. Also, the mayor's certification, so residency test, right? So you'd have to have lived in that residence for over half the year. So that would require a mayor's certification. And in regards to full-time students, you need to provide the transcripts that can provide evidence that you were a full-time student. So these are records that need to go with the application.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to also send that message out to the listening audience. Okay, so so with this portion, I would like to open up in regards to income tax refunds, economic stimulus, Azura Imangafa. I would like to open up, and we'll go into the agenda a little bit more. So I do want to go into health and safety, personnel and training, compliance stuff. So I know time is kind of short, but if any of my colleagues have any questions regarding this portion, if you could just raise your hand and I can acknowledge you at this time. Senator Shelton, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Not necessarily a question, but I'd like to thank the department very much for their efforts with the Azura Imangafa Help for Families program. They've obviously been working very hard on it, and today is the deadline. And so I know even this morning, we are still receiving calls and messages in our office for assistance with getting the required documents and just clarification. And the team at DRT has been very responsive to us as well. We've all been working together over the last couple of weeks to ensure that we can help as many families as possible. So I have to take the moment to commend all of you at DRT and your team for allowing us to make this possible for our Guam families. Thank you very much.
Sijus Masi, Senator Shelton.
Okay, any other questions regarding this section of the agenda? Okay, so we're going to move on to health, safety, and building updates. So I think one of the concerns that I've had is the environs of the workplace and ensuring that the safety of the workers there. So it's good to hear that Office of Homeland Security is providing. Are they the ones that are going to provide you DRT with all the sanitizing equipment? Is that
So what we've done, Senator Perez, and so of course we were able to get some quotes for example, those hand sanitizing stations, the stand-up ones that also take temperature. So our team is working on procuring those, of course, through the small purchase process. That's something, again, that we had looked at. We want to make sure that we have those. In terms of other equipment, not sure outside of that. Again, it was hand sanitizing stations. We wanted to make sure that we have certain things like a touchless time clock, things to help, again, to support the fact that we are trying not to touch things as much as possible, or at least have contact with things. But we're working to procure those items. But of course, we're grateful to Guam Homeland Security for assisting us with the efforts of obtaining supplies.
okay? So basically, all of the supplies are provided by DRT. Is that correct?
So I know that our team has actually, and even for myself, have worked to try to get little spray bottles so people can have them. People have been bringing in little hand sanitizers, but we've been able to get gloves, hand sanitizer, and alcohol from Guam Homeland Security. I just checked with our RAC, which is our coordinator who liaises between, of course, our agency and the Homeland, and he had advised me that yes, we've been continuing to be able to obtain those items, those supplies from Guam Homeland Security, and he's been working to get those out to the different branches as they've needed.
Thank you. The other concern I have is the building itself, because it's not, it's an open environment, so it's really hard to contain if somebody is a carrier. The potential to spread is much easier in that working environment. I know the operations guidance is for 25% occupancy, but that still is a concern for me. What are some of the initiatives that you're working on in regards to perhaps relocating to a better location?
I mean, I
Or
perhaps
addressing.
So, I mean, we know in the last year when Deputy Director Santos and I just started that we did have several challenges with our building. We had fire watch for a while because, of course, there was problems with our fire alarm and suppression systems. We did have mold in our building. We're grateful that, of course, that when we came in, our landlord had made sure that they assisted us in addressing some of those issues. There's still, of course, a lot of limitations to our building. As you mentioned, it is quite open. And again, that's why I think that a lot of the measures that we put in place, and I believe we've been very proactive. In the beginning of the public health emergency, our team had actually worked to quarantine documents, and people were, probably, making a bit fun of it, but, we quarantine documents because, again, we don't, we want to try to reduce the amount of the possibility that there is a virus that's being carried in those documents that we're receiving and processing and touching. We've also implemented an alternating work group schedule, which we're calling a bubble schedule. And so what basically happens is on an every other week basis, like, for example, you'll notice that Deputy Director Santos is actually at the office, and I am actually working from my home office, if you will. And because, again, we're trying to make sure that there's some level of continuity in the event that there is a potential exposure or a positive. And so we've implemented a work group schedule. Each of our branches has basically been cut in half so that way, again, if somebody becomes positive, that we can make sure that we don't skip a beat. We realize, and I believe we recognize that the continuity of our services is very important to our people. If we were to have to shut down for a week or 2 weeks because we had somebody who was positive, we know that would be detrimental to our community. So that's another thing that we've put in place. But we have, again, like I mentioned, even prior to the public health guidance coming out on logging in and checking in, we actually had a check-in station even when we were shut down to the public, so that our team members had to go in and they had to check in at a check-in station. So we know who's at the building, we know who is who is in the office in the event there needs to be some type of contact tracing done. We also, as I mentioned, if you look at our conference room, which you've been to before a few times, Senator Perez, we've actually separated our fancy conference room tables, the plastic 6-foot ones, so that they're not all together, but they're separated. And we've made it so that that way, even if you're in that room, that you will be, far away from, we will be far away from each other, and that we have the distance that's required. The guidance, of course, that we've talked about in our agency is, 15 minutes and 6 feet. And so the 6-foot social distance, right, we have to keep. And then, of course, we know public health has issued guidance indicating whether you're considered, if you have an exposure or a potential exposure, if you're considered high, medium, or low risk. And the 15 minutes and 6 feet is very important. We also make sure that we remind people that they need to wash their hands. They need to wear masks. We require masks and washing hands. And then also, of course, watching distance. So, and I think that, so what we did as well, Senator Perez, is because of this 25% capacity, what we did was we, of course, tried to factor in, if we were going to have so many people in our employees in our agency, then what does that mean for our number of customers that we're able to serve? And so we have a system where, for example, in driver's license, we know, and just an example, the number may not be exactly accurate, but where we say, okay, if we have 70 to 80 employees that are actively in our building, then that means that we, can only have 30 or so non-employees in our building at any given time, so that we can meet whatever threshold there is. And so we've allocated those 30 or 40, 30 across the different branches. So for example, a small branch, they may have a slot for one appointment. And what it means is that at any point during the day, they can just only have one, that one appointment slot that's filled, so that we don't, we don't overcrowd, we don't crowd. Also, I think of course, as the by appointment only proposition was very challenging for us, but I think we're working our best to address it. From the start, we implemented, of course, a system of not allowing people to congregate outside our building, because as you know, even when we did just open up on May 17 and in that week, or May 18 in that week, there was, I think, one day, and I know Deputy Director Santos will probably remember, where I think we had about 600 people that came in for vehicle registration in one day, and that was only for one service. So, we recognize that there's a need to implement measures, not just for our safety, but also for the safety of the people that come into our building. So, again, we've done our best to be proactive given the resources that we have, and I believe that our team has been creative and again, work to implement things. Are they perfect? Perhaps not. Have we had to make changes as we go along? For sure. And we're going to continue to have to adapt as we go along. As you know, all of this is really a learning process. This is the first time that we are in our history, dealing with this public health emergency like this. So, I continue to try to read up on different things about different countries and what they're doing in terms of bubbling and things like that. Obviously, I wish we could do a system like the NFL where they house their players in a hotel and they don't allow anybody to interact with them, and we don't have to worry about the possibility of exposure, because we house people kind of together in a true bubble. But we're trying to simulate type of a bubble situation, again, for the purpose of health and safety, and also for the purpose of ensuring continuity of our services, recognizing, that our people do need our services.
Yes, thank you, Director. And I do see the improvements too, and the adaptation that you guys are doing. And I really think it's really good that you allow the customer to wait in the car versus standing in line with everybody else. I think that's a good improvement. But I would, I'll recognize Senator Taitukwi soon. But just a question about teleworking. So I feel that maybe there should be a task force to kind of be more proactive about teleworking opportunities, because I think that a lot of the work can be done, outside of the office. So yeah, I mean, you may not have. I don't know what your do you have a team in place to kind of ascertain the movement towards that? And it's really good to hear too that more of the public is using online. So for instance, renewals of registration online from 9,000 to 20,000, which is a significant change. But yeah, we have a way to go out of the 119,000 those registrations, but I think it'd be great to continue that progress. So I don't know if you have a team that's really dedicated to promoting these changes. And I know this is you guys are doing a lot of work as it is, and it's just this is something that I think is might help you in the long run, or will help you in the long run.
Absolutely, and noted, Senator Perez. Yes, of course, initially we had basically, I guess, given authority to, to the supervisors and to the administrators, to have, be able to advise their groups on, what items they can or should be working on when they're teleworking. One of our groups, of course, had printed out a bunch of, materials for training and other things, so that way, of course, during the time that people are teleworking, that they're continuing to remain busy, and that they're doing some work that's going to, make sure that where we're going to be able to, of course, get some value out of it from our community. Of course, the teleworking does require certain things, and, we are working on trying to procure some equipment so that way, people will not have to utilize their personal equipment in order to be able to answer. I do want to say thank you to my team, though, because several of our supervisors and administrators, they do use their personal phones to make sure that they get back to, to our customers. And, our supervisors and our administrators have been really great about that. And even outside of business hours. So, I want to say thank you to them. But, as it's important that as we plan for teleworking, that we properly procure. And so we're working on some equipment so that we can, again, more effectively work to telework. And I thank you for your comments, Madam Chair, regarding the task force. I think that you're absolutely right, and that's a great idea for us.
Great, thank you, Director. Senator Taitukwi, you had a question. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Daphne, and good afternoon, Michelle. Thank you so much for being here today, and I greatly appreciate all the work that you're doing, but there's quite a bit more that needs to be done. I've been getting calls left and right, from constituents, and they have legitimate, questions. And some of the stuff they're all in that group of 1 month to 3 months still waiting to be heard, from Rev and Tax. It's an issue. And looking at all your PowerPoint presentation and listening to, I'm sorry to say, but I don't see any progress. It's gotten worse, out there, and people are just complaining left and right about rev and tax. But I'm going to go down from customer service. That's at another phase. I'm going to try and stay with the agenda. I know that it was brought up earlier about the Mangafa payments. And I have a question, because the EIP, that was stimulus payments, are actually advance payments for refundable, credits.
Yes.
But part of the internal revenue, it's part of the Internal Revenue Code. The issue with this is that since Managov payments are not based on need, but rather the age of the dependent, they're not welfare payments. So do you know if these payments are taxable to the recipients? Will these recipients be sent a tax form for a 1099 to claim these payments as income?
Thank you, Senator Tadekwi, and you're right. So what it is with regards to, of course, the EIP, which is a federal mandate, and of course, was established by Congress. It is a refundable credit. And it is meaning that a refundable credit is a credit, and it's an advanced refundable credit at that, meaning that you didn't have to pay any withholding in order to get it. And of course, you're right, it is not taxable. With regards to Mangafa, of course, we do not have on the local level the ability to make something taxable or not taxable. At least at this point, and perhaps I will need to confer with my team, but I believe that Mangafa may be taxable as well. But of course, subject to any limitations. So with regards to a threshold on what's taxable.
Okay, can you find out, please, Daphne, for that? Several, I've got a list of constituents here. I'm sorry, sweetie, but this is, coming to our office, and there are a lot of people watching right now. There are texts coming in. Watching this oversight because of the issues
Sure.
that they're seeing. And the other one is, the war claims. Are the war claims taxable?
So my understanding with regards to war claims, ma'am, is that it's really based on the level of beneficiary that you are. So you could either be, of course, a recipient who was actually in the war, and you were, subjected to of course, whatever atrocities of the war. My understanding is that type of, it's a direct benefit, is not taxable, but of course, we do have situations where people are years. And of course, again, taxability is based on, and if you are actually going to pay tax, it's going to be based on your tax situation. But my understanding is that, again, whether or not war claims is taxable is going to be dependent upon whether you're a direct beneficiary or indirect beneficiary. And again, of course, I would really recommend that people check their tax professionals on that matter. But to go back to it, and I want to thank you, Senator Tadegui, also, even for bringing up, of course, the criticisms and the issues and challenges, and perhaps even the complaints about our agency. I promise you that over the last several weeks, I also have received some complaints, and I'll share with you. I have actually talked with my team about answering phone calls, about answering emails. We work to try to figure out how we can make it better. And I want to, thank you so much and to the community for bringing that up as well, because, of course, we want to work with you, Senator Tadegui, and all the community members and legislators to make it better. So thank you again, for that as well, for sharing that.
Sure. Thank you, Daphne. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but, I'm trying to get my time in.
Sorry, apologies.
Our oversight chair, she can be a stickler for time, so I'm trying to get as much as I can get in. So I know you're doing all, you did your whole, review of it and your PowerPoint presentation. Thank you. And I've actually sent that off to a couple of people who've been texting, wanting to see it because they want a copy as well. And that's our job, we're the voice of the people, and we're here today. So, please. You talked about safety. We are still on health and safety of the building. One of the complaints that I received was when they submitted their business license, they were told that they would have to wait 2 days for the paper, or the paper that's submitted, or any paper that's submitted, 2 days to sterilize, or to, be safe to handle. And it doesn't make any sense if you're having these appointments of individuals coming in to walk them through the process on doing their taxes right then and there, and they're touching documents. But when people drop off documents, they're told they have to wait 2 days before they can even touch it. So what is the, it doesn't make any sense, right, Daph? I mean, somebody comes in with documents right then and there, they're touching it. What's the difference? Or is that still being implemented?
And again, thank you, Senator Teddy, for the question. So, again, as you know, we've been working to adapt our processes to help not only the health and safety of our people on a physical level, but also I think as well probably their psychological health and making sure that they, feel as well that they're protected. Of course, I did mention, I think earlier that we did have a process of quarantining documents, and I will have to confirm the number of days or how long that we leave documents. But, it also does take time from the, just to share with you, our Dropbox has been, of course, because, we are not able to serve by walk-in, our Dropbox it gets filled regularly. So, I will have to again check how long or how many days or whatever it is that documents are being quarantined. But, I do hear you on your point with regards to, accepting documents on one hand and then also, quarantining documents on the other. And so again, thank you, Senator Tadwi, for that, point well taken, and we'll do our best, to address so that way there's some level of consistency in our processes and what we do.
But consistency is very important. If you don't know the answer, Michelle, Deputy Director, do you know the quarantine on paper that come in through the Dropbox?
I believe it is a day or two, but I'm not sure. I believe even now it's not sitting for 2 days. I believe they're sending it out the same day. They usually pick it up in the morning, and they do distribute it after sorting and opening. They do distribute it within the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you then. And everyone who's out there who's listening, has heard that. So now we won't get these calls, exaggerating the days from 2 days to 3 days to 5 days. So now it's good to know it's being distributed. And since Michelle, I have you on, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of constituent had an issue with a renewal of their, it was an extension, not a renewal. It was an extension. And they talked very highly of you. They were having some issues downstairs with the business license section. And this constituent went straight up to your office, and you spoke to them and found there was nothing wrong, and you made that correction right away. So I want to thank you for that, because, these individuals really appreciate it, because I know that you guys are doing the best you can on that, but there's quite a bit of complaints, you guys. I mean, you talk about, what can we do as a legislature to get you to make this a lot easier? I'm going to wait on the customer service because I have an issue with placards, the accessible parking placards. It's not even on the website on how these individuals can get renewed. That's a big issue. We have a new process that you're allowing these business license. Am I on that part? Madam Chair, I don't want to go off your agenda. So is that on customer service when it comes to business license and stuff? Shall I wait for that? Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah, maybe we can wait for that during that.
I'll hold then. Okay, that's all I have for now with regards to health and safety is just that issue on that one. And we'll get to when we get to it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Are there any of my colleagues who would like to have any questions regarding building and safety issues of stimulus money? Okay, so we're going to move on to the next segment, which is the personnel. So Director Daphne, is there a shortage of workers at DRT right now? Would you say there's a shortage based on the amount of work currently? Has there been an evaluation of FTEs that are needed to support all the efforts that you're doing? And in addition to, the bubble thing that you were talking about, how you are segmenting part of the workforce so that, there is, it kind of help contain any kind of a spread. So have you evaluated your workforce needs? Is there a shortage? And is there a task force that's addressing this issue right now? I know obviously you need people to address, but if there's anything that we can do as far as the legislature is concerned to help with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding, of course, our personnel, I think that I believe that even again, outside of a public health emergency, we have had challenges with regards to, of course, processing and processing things timely. I don't think that that's something that is not known. Of course, with this public health emergency, just to share, I don't believe it's, even as I talk with also our federal counterparts, they're also just working to try to adapt to figure out how that they can address, of course, the servicing of the community, again, and balance that out against the health and safety and trying to save lives during this current period. I don't have a task force. We don't have a current task force. And, again, and we are, again, doing our best. I know we have to definitely work to identify most especially a lot of the items, and want to thank all of the senators for bringing up the concerns of our people. I will share, we have done our best to address, of course, as people have brought up questions and have had concerns. But I mean, in terms of personnel, as I mentioned, even outside of a public health emergency, of course, we have had challenges. At this time, again, we have worked to get some DOL program employees. I actually also was talking with a deputy administrator for another agency who had also offered to provide some level of assistance so that we can have additional people as well, perhaps detailed or assisting at our agency. So although we don't have a task force, it is something that is being discussed and perhaps needs to, make its way into a probably more formal type of discussion and plan.
Daphne, if you need to take a drink of water, I know you're speaking a lot.
I'm okay, Senator Perez. We'll be okay to be here as long as you need for us to be. Thank you.
So do you have a shortage of workers right now?
If I have to say yes or no, I will probably say yes. And of course, the use of a work group schedule or a bubble group does, of course, impact our ability to process and to serve. But again, that's something that we're just trying to work out, kind of balancing out health and safety with our ability to serve. And I'll just share with you, on the eve of October 15, which was the deadline for the extended due date, and because we do have a work group schedule, we had the potential of an exposure, and it was only potential, but the areas that were impacted were the branches that were actually going to be directly involved with our income tax deadline. And so at 10:30 at night, I was on the phone with public health, I was on the phone with our branches, and we were able to switch out 4 branches seamlessly without having to worry about the October 15 deadline. So when we think about rev and tax and we think about our ability to serve, I think it's important to also recognize that there are deadlines that we also cannot move, like, for example, an October 15 deadline or a July 15 deadline, and that there is still a need to serve and to be able to provide some capability for people. And unfortunately, it cannot just be someone who is untrained or not, who has no idea about our processes and procedures. But I use that as a very good example of the reason why that we're doing this. And again, the process isn't perfect. And we do get complaints, to Senator Titagui's point. But I will share with you, when I do get requests for things, or when I do get complaints, we don't take them lightly. We recognize that our people are in need, and we want to do our best to serve however we can. Sometimes, perhaps, especially at this time, it may not be as timely as maybe is needed But, I can assure you that that's not for lack of trying and not for lack of caring, because at our agency, I will tell you, at least for me, and I know Deputy Director Santos feels the same. And I thank you, Senator Titagui, for recognizing the work of Deputy Director Santos, because I could tell you we do care about our people and we want to serve the best we can. So we'll continue to do so. But it is difficult and we do have a shortage. And again, we're working to address it. And then thank you again, Madam Chair, for your comment and your recommendation on a task force to address that.
Thank you. So I do have some questions from my colleagues. Senator Pito Terlai, I'm sorry, I apologize, Speaker. I'm just Pito. Senator Pito, you raised your hand.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Daphne and Michelle and the entire employees of Revenue and Tax, because I know they're working really hard. I only have two things that I wanted to mention, and I think the director have already mentioned the problems regarding the renewal of business license and the new applications of business license and a renewal of registrations and driver's license and all that. And thank you very much, Director, for explaining that. I just received a call regarding a business license, so I'm just going to go back to that person and explain that, we're trying, Revenue and Tax is trying their very best to satisfy the services that their people are asking. And I want to thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, Senator Pito. Speaker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll make this quick. Just based on that last answer from Director Shimizu, I probably was going to ask her, is it possible that I know that a lot of the institutional knowledge that you had in as far as the senior employees, I know a couple of them may have already retired. Is there any way that we can bring them back on like a contract basis? I know that we have exemptions for teachers, doctors, nurses, and all that stuff. And maybe that this is something that we can look into if it's not already in, to look at the expertise of those who have institutional knowledge that have retired in the last several years, that maybe you can temporarily pick them up and maybe even look at the funding that we have in the CARES, because there's so many things that need to be rotated. And if there's funds out there, that could be just a suggestion, food for thought. Maybe she can comment on that if she hasn't done it already. Madam Chair.
Masi, Speaker Barnes. Yes, and thank you for that recommendation. Of course, that's something that we actually already do have a few people who are retired and who have come back on. I'm not sure of exactly the term is contract, but yes, we do have a few. So of course, and this has been brought up as well before. So I thank you for that comment. And, definitely again, as Senator Perez mentioned, is that we'll work to make sure that we again put together a more kind of focused plan to address our, whatever shortage we may have with regards to personnel.
Thank you, Speaker. Do you have any further questions? Okay, thank you. Senator Titagui, yes,
Just to follow up on this one, Daph, you were on KUAM recently, and I believe it was Tuesday, and you talked about there's about 20 branches at Rev and Tax, which is quite extensive. And in fact, I even brought that up when someone was talking about, the AG's office, about the laundry list of they have to do. And I said, well, have you seen Rev and Tax? Because they have just as long as of a list and, and a shortage as well. But what was kind of funny was that you mentioned during that interview that driver's license, you have a couple people answering the phone. But in the other areas, you just mentioned one person on the other agencies and departments. Daphne, that one person and all these other, no wonder there's a backlog or people are not getting answered. If you only have per branches in Rev and Tax, one person answering calls, and you mentioned you can hear the other phones ringing in the background, but one person is definitely not enough people with the amount of people that are coming in. So can you elaborate on exactly what you said on KUAM?
Sure thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Tidecki. That's a good question. Regarding, of course, as you know, we do have our call center, and those numbers are 635-1840, 414257, and I think 09, and then we have like 7603, 4, and 5. And so that particular, we actually had to assign to a certain group those customer call center numbers. But of course, as we have been progressing through this public health emergency, and those numbers still stand, meaning that those numbers are still being actively answered. That group is actually our income tax group, and so of course, as you know, there are periods where it is challenging because of course they have a lot of questions. They also answer general questions. In our income tax supervisor, she's actually tasked with, of course, not only taking care of our income tax group, but also serving a dual role as somebody who answers general questions and actually is very knowledgeable on all other areas. When I did speak with our driver's license team, I was advised, at least this is what I recall, that there was 2 people that were answering phones and driver's license. Driver's license is probably our motor vehicle division is probably one of the highest, I would like to say, volume calls. Because of course the need for driver's licenses, people have a lot of questions with regards to real IDs and things like that. So in addition to those 2 people there, at least that I was again advised of in the last week or so that are answering, we do have still our customer call center. And then of course, at each of our branches, and we don't have, of course, really, we have some branches that are quite small. We have a branch of 2, we can have a branch of 5. But of course, we have listed out the numbers that on our volumes and the numbers that are actively going to be answered. And so again, in addition to our customer call center, we also have people who, as I understand, are assigned in the branches to answer calls.
Is that only one? Is that only one?
And perhaps, excuse me if I misspeak, I will have to confirm on if it's just 1 per branch, because I do know that we have, I don't believe that we've listed probably more than 1 number per branch. And so, of course, the number is attached to, an individual phone unit. And so, I will have to go back and confirm that. But we do have people at each of our branches that are answering phones. And then also we still continue to have our customer call center that, again, has multiple numbers.
Yeah, and I think, Daphne, and thank you, Madam Chair, for this last one. But, I know there's got to be a plan be put in place. And I mean, like yesterday, for all these issues. But if you could maybe consider, you gave out all those numbers for people to call the call center, but if you could just designate certain numbers for agencies, driver's license, GRT, business license, down the line, and have at least 2 people in each department and give those numbers to the department. That way you can monitor what departments or branches at Rev and Tax and see if they're doing their job, because it's not just, crossing their fingers and doing their job. I've even heard, Daphne, on the radio, you mentioned even relatives were calling you. And I know
Yes.
that's got to be hard. You've got your own family member calling you on issues at Rev and Tax. So I think if there's a way to monitor what department is not performing correctly, it's hard to do that when you have a call center and everybody's trying to get, their answer. You just can't monitor it unless it's individually tasked with a number. Then you can monitor. Then those complaints can come in legitimately for one department and agency, because I tell you, I don't have issues with, I heard GRT is awesome, collections is good, income tax, I'm hearing good things about those agencies. So if we can just pin it down to that and monitor it. I really appreciate if you can look into that, Daphne, because then we can pin the problem that's happening.
And to share with you, Senator Tidecki, one thing that I have asked of the Office of Technology to assist us with, because they are really the ones that could be able to assist us with our phone logs, phone stats, things like that. That's something that I've asked Frank Lujan to assist me with, because I do believe that really that's the only way to be able to truly monitor from a very independent kind of way. But also, again, I want to thank you for your comments regarding our branches that have been actively answering. And you know what, I promise you we'll do our best in all of our other branches to make sure that we continue to try to strive to make sure that we are answering our phone calls. Thank you.
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chaitigui. Are there any questions at this point regarding personnel? Further questions? Okay, so we're going to move on to the CARES funds. So it's my understanding that $6 million was supposedly allotted for Department of Revenue and Taxation. So I wonder if you can provide an update on how the funding has been spent thus far to date, and especially on technology upgrades. Do you have updates on that?
I mentioned earlier, ma'am, I don't have the full amount. I'll have to check. But as I mentioned, I believe that in terms of purchase orders that have actually been issued, we have issued, of course, a purchase order for 80 additional workstations, and that's something that I'm confident of. We're actually in the process of making sure we submit proper documentation to BBMR so that funds can be loaded and we can, submit requisitions and so that POs can be issued on those requisitions. But I do not have an actual update on that, ma'am, yet in terms of the total amount, and I will work to get that to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And who's providing the technical expertise for the upgrade?
I always work with the Office of Technology and Director Lujan. If it's not only him, he will at times also have members of his staff. I know we had a call with one of our vendors, and we had maybe 3 or 4 of his staff on the call, even if he's not on. But we, have, there was a point where we were meeting weekly, and then, it was a little bit too frequent, but we have tried to meet with him regularly. So we do, of course, with regards to any specs for equipment, we have to run it by them. I'm not sure if that's if by law they're required to do that, but we definitely make sure that all of the specs for different equipment that we're trying to procure goes through them, because again, they are the technological experts, and so they provide that input, and thank them for that.
Okay. And will the new system be comparable to stateside systems which automate many tax services, preserve digital records, generate automatic notifications to mail or email the public, and automatically flag problem accounts? Is this part of the specs that you're mentioning?
Well, I mean, in terms of our actual system, already we do have a system which allows for, soft copies of records. So for example, I mean, in terms of income tax, we do actually scan returns, and so there are actual soft copies of returns. And I know this because when I've been at my office, which is in the 2nd floor, and had contacted our supervisor who's on the 1st floor, I was working on processing a return. She was able to access the system and look at an actual form, and then cross advise me on what was on the form because she could see it. So there is some level of that occurring. It's not at the level we wish. I think that where we really need to be is where we are not even having to worry about scanning, but really where we're already going to have a system where, as much as possible, things are submitted online. For example, like the Mangafa form. The Mangafa form is actually a fillable form, not just a PDF fillable form, but it's a fillable online form that, where the data is entered, and the data is already entered and processed into our system. Same as also the BPT system that we have. So, the idea is to reduce processing, to reduce the amount of paperwork, to reduce the amount of paper that we have to touch. And I can't say, Madam Chair, if it will be comparable to a stateside system. I'm not familiar, but I can say that, again, our main goal is, of course, to get forms to be done online, to be filed online, so that there's not a need for paper or processing. And once an individual has entered their information, as long as we're able to, at least on the driver's license side, once information's in the system, we're able to confirm it and accept it. And then on the income tax side, because the system already has a capability of I guess, of erroring out if there is an issue with the calculation or something like that. And so, yeah, those are things, again, some things may be in place in terms of, I guess, in terms of erroring or the system being able to flag. Some things may not, but we're working. I think the main thing is to reduce the amount of paper that's involved. I think paper and processing, and if we're able to do that, I think that that will help to relieve some of the stress of our team in terms of labor.
Okay, that's great to hear that we're cutting down on manual processing. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to more updates on that one. And the other thing is interconnectivity. So I know DOA, they just received technological upgrades. So maybe we won't talk about this now because we only have a short amount of time left. But if you can basically fill me in on whether the system that DOA is purchasing is going to be able to connect with DRT. And I think that's something I'm trying to push to, is more interconnectivity. But we have very little time left, so I want to move on to the compliance part of it. And some of the questions, I guess this is for Deputy Director Michelle. As far as the rules and regs, so we actually have been meeting offline, but if you can share with the audience, what is the progress thus far in regards to the rules and regs?
We've been working on using Hawaii's rules and regs and trying to tie it in with our laws. We've been working with the AG and with the compliance branch on that. But we're also waiting on the legislature to see what you do with the law, like, amendments, if there are going to be any. But we're still plugging along, working with the AG, trying to get sort of a draft until we know what's happening with the legislature, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so yeah, we are in communication. So yeah, this is something that we're working closely, but will there be opportunities for the public to provide any kind of input regarding this draft? At what point will the public be able to? Because I know that you're working with the AG at this time, and so I understand that you're going through the AAA process. Is that correct?
If we need to, if it's going to be passed like in a law, I don't know. We wanted to make sure that we could do that if a senator's willing or if you're willing. Otherwise, we'll go to the AAA.
So
because it has to come to you anyway. But if we do go to the AAA, either way, it does have to have a public hearing. Either way.
So as far as timelines, so in the what is the expectation of having these rules and regs, at least the draft form, being completed? Is there a timeline for this?
We could probably finish it in a week, Senator. We could probably finish it in a week, provided there are no changes to the law.
Okay. So if you're going through the AAA process, then that would mean you'll be holding a public hearing regarding the draft rules and regs?
Yes. Yes.
So we can expect in December maybe for a hearing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so there's other questions here. Concerning rules and regs, aside from tobacco tax stamp program, does DRT have rules and regs that have been approved through the AAA process for the bonded warehouse system?
No.
And
yeah, I believe that has to work together. If there's going to be a law change, the bonded and the cigarette tax stamp has to work together. And as soon as that's all clear, we can finalize our rules and regs. But we would like to have those two things work together. It makes our job easier. Yeah.
Definitely. I think though the work of drafting the rules and regs can be done with the current law. And then of course that can change. It would definitely would have to mirror the current law.
Yeah.
And as laws are changed, then the rules and regs could be aligned with it in the future. But I think, yeah, that's something that we can base it on what's currently in law.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to share with the progress in regard to implementation of the cigarette stamp tax? Oh, can you also explain about the guidance? I don't know if you can share that in regards, you were waiting some clarification with the AG regarding the cigarette stamp tax and the cigarette tax itself. Are those,
We're waiting to hear whether it was a double taxation, and the AG said no. So it is not a double taxation.
so does that the stamp tax is added on top of it, or is it the one and the same as the tobacco tax?
It's one and the same, is what I'm understanding.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. If, yeah, we can get some written, perhaps more of a formal written notice from the AG to confirm that, because I don't want to base it on just an interpretation. But yeah, that's my understanding too. But I just want to make sure that that is really the case.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Speaker Minnie Barnes, you had some questions. You're
Yeah.
right.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just get, based on the answer I'm receiving right now, and based on the public hearing that we had on Bill 368, the compliance part, or the legal opinion that it was being waited upon from the Attorney General's office, I'm probably getting the understanding, just based on Deputy Director's answers, that they're waiting for the AGs for answers, and this has been going on, I want to say, for 4 years now. And I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, because we've already, when we had the public hearing, the OPA stated that there was millions of dollars that Guam was losing out on, that there was a distributor that was at the public hearing that owns less than 50% of the market and is paying anywhere from 80 to 90% based on what procedures are being done right now. And let alone for me asking the industry experts to go ahead and give their answers if this is true or not. I was told at the public hearing, we are waiting for the Attorney General's answer for the concerns on the regulatory component as it relates to the interpretation of, I want to say, cigarette stamp tax or cigarette tax. So I think the first thing I need to ask is when was the last time we communicated with the AGs, and when did they give us an update or a proposed draft? Because we have been patiently waiting for this for over 4 years, when then Senator Mike Nicholas had this passed, and I presented one of the solutions to look at an RFP based on what was existing in law, but not at a 40%, maybe anywhere between 2 and 10 or 12%, something within reasonable thing, because we've had public-private partnerships before. So I'm just, Madam Chair, I'm just getting a little bit confused as to outlines on that, because if it has to go through the AAA process, because the law specifically says they are need to go through the AAA, and that's needed by law, then that's a component for the Office of Revenue and Tax to proceed with. It comes after that, then it comes to us to either move it forward or kill it in the legislature. But based on the patience that we've been waiting for was the interpretation from the Office of the Attorney General. And I think I need a reiteration on this, and I know that there may be some conflicts of interest, but I'm literally wanting to see why AGs hasn't sent anything in writing, or have they sent anything in writing? Because the other concern that was brought up at the public hearing was the amount that it would cost to put this program in place. So it wasn't really about the AG's opinion, but also just the amount of the 240,000 that was needed. So between the amount allotted, the AG's opinion, now they're saying that based on the deputy's answer to us, that it needs our inquiry, our support. I'm getting mixed messages here, and I just want to get a clear, if we need to change the law again, I'm willing to look at that. If I need to clarify that, I want to be able to make sure that we can put it in the amendment of this law. But I think without hearing an update of the Attorney General, Madam Chair, I think this is
the Office of the Attorney General provided guidance to us we asked the question whether, whether or not the cigarette tax stamp tax was a double taxation. And we got guidance on that. They said, no, we have it in writing. The difference between guidance and an opinion, an attorney general's opinion, is with the guidance, you can't share it with the public. So I'm going to have to ask for guidance from them on whether I can share that. I'm just telling you what it says. We still need 240,000 if that was the amount we gave with respect to implementing the program. That was one of the reasons we did not implement, is because it was unfunded. And we talked about a shortage of personnel. We're going to be short. We have one person doing bonded in compliance, and we use another person from business privilege tax, and their hands are full with bonded. So you mentioned three things, Speaker Barnes. I think I've addressed two. I can't remember the other one. But or whether the legislature's part now, what they have to play, and whether there needs to be an amendment. I don't know. You know, you introduce a cigarette tax stamp. You want us to bid it out. We're thinking that we can do the RFP for that. But we're trying to also look. We like the way Hawaii does it, and we're sort of leaning towards that. Although nothing's set in stone. But we're ready to work on whatever needs to be worked on. And the first thing is to get the rules and regs in place. But what's slowing that down is whether there's going to be any amendment to the law. But we can finish our work with the existing law, and if anything else changes, then we change it. If that's the way you want to proceed, we can do that.
Madam Chair, if I may, just based on the information that I'm receiving right now, I think it's very critical and crucial that if there is a concern about implementing a $240,000 resource to have this program initiated or this public law initiated versus the millions of dollars that's being escaped right now, I think we are losing out on giving resources to our hospitals, to our schools, to our children. And I think it's really important that we look at what collaboration that we can do to come together on this issue, because we have been patiently waiting. We put everything out on the table. There has been a proposal based on the existing law to have 40% on an RP given to a private entity to facilitate the program. And our initiative was to bring that public-private partnership down to a minimum of anywhere between 2 to 12%, whatever the RFP calls for. And the main concern was AGs didn't do that. And if there's a guidance there, Madam Chair, I think it's important that we at least get that opportunity to come back to this table, or to at least give us that, because I think that the millions of dollars that we're losing to give to our hospitals and our schools, I think is an injustice to what we need to do. Please don't get me wrong. I know DRT has been doing a lot. I am not going to fault any of the employees or anything. I just know that this is an additional thing. And if we are going to complain about not having the 240,000 and a representation of what is already in law to do, I think is an injustice.
I'm not complaining about anything. I'm just saying you want us to implement the law, but we don't have any money to do it. And we're just, being on the cautious side of any future immediate amendments, because I don't have the staff to reinvent the wheel. Right. Look how difficult it is for us to, the compliance branch, ma'am, I can tell you, Craig works extra hard with the people he has. Not only is he tasked with the cigarette tax stamp and and the bonded and everything else. He also has cannabis, which is a new thing that is taking up a lot of time, and that too was unfunded. So our hands are, I mean, that's just to mention a few of the things that we do. But I'm not complaining, Speaker Barnes. With all due respect, I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to tell you what it is here, what it's like, and what we're going through, and
Yeah.
why we're not moving if we're not moving.
Madam Chair, if I may, thank you, Deputy Director Santos, for that. I just want to share that it is important that if Department of Revenue and Taxation can give us a complete breakdown of what it's going to take, the positions it's going to need to utilize moving this program forward, give it to me, and I will introduce the bill immediately, because I think that what we're doing and losing out on the millions of dollars to try and capture what is being assessed for these tobacco stamps, I think we need this program to move through. And if that can be given to me, there's another solution to facilitate this public law moving forward. I think it's important that we do that, because we are, based on the OPA's reports, losing out on millions of dollars and this program. And if one of the solutions I brought up earlier is bringing retired employees back to work for the department, and I know there may be some exemptions to that already, but if we need to further clarify that, I'm more than willing to work with that, Madam Chair. And I know we're up against time, but I think that this is an issue that we need to facilitate and follow through. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Looking forward to finding a solution, and I think we can, kind of facilitate this along. And I have been working with the Deputy Director on an action plan to get this through on a faster timeline. So the rules and regs are definitely the prerequisite to anything. So that needs to be done first, and we need to do it definitely with the guidance of DRT and the AG's office. That's very critical. Okay, Senator Tydegui, do you have any questions? I know we're running out of time, so you wanted to talk about customer service too. We only have minutes left.
Just a comment. I really appreciate what DRT has been doing to move forward with very little they have, and I don't think the pressure should be on there. I mean, if there is like millions of dollars being evaded by these tobacco distributors, then by all means, the Speaker, let them know who those people who are evading taxes, and give them a heads up so that they can prosecute from the Attorney General's office if there's millions and millions of dollars being evaded by these tobacco companies. And by all means, not only GRT, but tell the Attorney General's office so they can go after them in the meantime. But I'm pretty sure that DRT is doing what they can and being thorough before implementing something that may be even a bigger headache and doesn't do anything. So I appreciate what they're doing with regards to this. And yeah, thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on. We only have a couple more minutes, about 4 more minutes of this oversight hearing. So Senator Tydegui, I know you had some questions concerning customer service.
Yes, absolutely. On the business license that are been sitting idle, I know there's quite a few, but can you tell me how many right now are sitting idle? You did mention earlier that you've had a few, or I don't even know, maybe it's 1 or 2, I'm not sure, Daphne, but can you tell me how many that you've processed new business license and how many are still sitting idle?
Thank you, Senator Tydegui. With regards to sitting idle, I'm not sure, but I have been, especially over the last several weeks, or at least last week or 2, been very actively, directly involved in the business license application process, recognizing that there was some kind of a holdup. And so, my understanding, in terms of account, when I talk with our team, there was like 174 applications that we were working on, contacting applicants to advise of maybe document issues, or I am confident though that we have issued some business licenses in the last week. I don't have a count on that, but what we have been working to do, and again, I've been directly working with our business license supervisor on the process, making sure that we can try to get these out as soon as possible, and recognizing that a lot of people have been waiting. So, I also agree with you, Senator Tydegui, that that it's important to get these licenses out. And I really do expect that we'll see a lot of movement on it very soon if people haven't already started getting contacted. But yes, I have received comments about that. And when I did start receiving comments, I did make sure that I got involved in the process. It's just quite a large volume. So we're trying to make sure we get through that. I did actually allocate additional headcount to that group and have been talking actively again with another agency about the possibility of getting additional heads to help that group so that we don't continue to run into this issue.
Thank you, Daphne. In fact, you just said it. It's over 100 brand new business license during a pandemic that these people are willing to sacrifice and open up a new business during a time like this. I mean, we're seeing tons of businesses close left and right. And if we can get these individuals up and running and encourage them and help them to get the process through faster, Daphne, this is an area even for, what we're expecting in on revenue coming into the government. If we don't get help these business up, I mean, I'm speaking to the choir. You've been in the private sector, you know the importance of it. So yes, it's over 100 from my information and the data I received. It's over 100 business licenses that are sitting idle, and most of them are over a month been sitting idle. I know you implemented this new business license branch, the new form, the BL-01, been put in place. I don't know how that's supposed to, expedite the process or to move it forward, but I do know there has been a hindrance, and that is a business license comes into Rev and Tax, and they have to sit and wait while, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is what I'm hearing, that when you submit a business license, you have to get cleared by EPA, Department of Public Works. You have to get cleared by other fire department, all those other areas. And usually it's the business owner, the potential applicant who goes to these different areas. Now they're told that they can't do anything. In fact, one constituent went to land management to try to not expedite the process, but try to help the process along. And they were told by Rev and Tax, they can't come there or they can't get the approval. And in the past, that's not true. You get your checklist and you go to all these agencies, and that hence the one-stop shop, was created to make it easier. But has that process changed now when you're applying for a business license and going down the checklist? Can you please?
Sure, and I want to thank you for bringing this up. So, of course, when we worked to issue or launch the Form BL-01, there was a few things that we wanted to address. Some things that we found, and just to share with you, one thing that we believed was important in terms of course, making sure that one thing that we wanted to make sure of was that, of course, business license was the first agency that we would be able to get the applications and process them. And the reason is because there are times when what we found was, at least in one instance that I've talked with our team, and I know this is not just the one, but I'm confident it's not just the one, but where, for example, a licensee went and tried to get all these clearances, but then came back to our agency and they were not registered, meaning that their organization wasn't registered. And so, the other agencies, there wasn't a system of ensuring that business license had already received and, reviewed. And I do recognize, Senator Titagui, that the delay is not something that, of course, is acceptable. Our team, I also take it very personally. I really do. And that is why that in September 3, when it was Labor Day, I made sure that we worked to try to develop a process. And unfortunately, the process wasn't as, I guess, implemented as well as we had hoped. The idea, though, is that, of course, the business license process would start with business license. Then, so that way we wanted to actually try to reduce the amount of papers that had to be transmitted, and of course the runaround by the licensees. And so, if it was implemented in the way that we had anticipated or contemplated, it would have been this way, where the business license application would be received. We would confirm, of course, that a company is registered. We would issue a universal business license number that universal business license number would be the license or the number that the other agencies would be able to utilize and confirm that the that all the proper things that Refunds was already submitted. And then from there, of course, outside of our agency, would go to land management, and then we would get the proper approval, and then we would work to again triage that to the agencies which would require inspection. So the goal of ours was to make it better for a better experience. We've been doing this for a little bit over a month, and you're right. We've had to revisit it because, again, I agree with you that it is, a challenge, and we do. But you know what? I and to the community, the people that are trying to get business licenses, I want to just let them know, we've been actively working directly with the team on this so we can address the issue. And I believe that people will start seeing a whole lot of movement on it very soon if they haven't already.
Thank you, Daphne. And you know what, Daphne, it might not be working. I mean, like you said earlier, not everything is perfect, but there, if it's not perfect, then you need to correct it right away. And if there are people who are willing to, wear their mask, social distance, and walk to land management and go to the fire just to help out Revenue Tax, because Revenue Tax is overwhelmed, I think you need to go back to that process because there's a lot of people willing to do it. But I think it was over 50% of those business licenses are like waiting for over a month. So they're frustrated, and time is money in a business. If anybody's willing to open up one, every time they wait, it costs them money until they get their license and get up and running. So I greatly appreciate to revisit that. I mean, like yesterday, and we need to do this now, Daph. There's just way too many complaints coming in from Revenue Tax. And I say this with all good intentions with you and Michelle. During the last administration, when Revenue Tax had an issue, they just went to the governor's office, and they've got a lot of people coming from different departments and agencies to come over and help Revenue Tax in a time of need. So may I make that recommendation, because it doesn't need the legislature to do that at all. All it takes, you're a line agency, all it takes is for you to ask the governor for that additional help and, bring the cavalry in to help Revenue Tax. So please reach out to your governor. There is a big issue happening at Revenue Tax, and you need the manpower. Send them.
And I thank you for that, Senator Taitaglia. Will share, of course, our governor and a lieutenant governor have been very supportive of us, of our agency, and you could see it in our budget. You could see it even in the providing of the funding for the CARES. With regards to assistance from other agencies, again, as I mentioned earlier, I've actively, and even as yesterday during the holiday, 2 days ago before the holiday, talk with someone from another agency, another administrator who was going to, work to provide a support in terms of administration, and also as well spoke with another agency head yesterday as well, because again, in the area of procurement, we need assistance. So, I do appreciate your comments, and you're absolutely right. You know what, at the end of the day, we are here to serve our people, and we recognize that that's what we are here to do. And we're going to continue to drive forward and do so to make things better for them and work to address as soon as possible. So thank you.
Ms. Masi, we're going to have to adjourn this meeting because there's another meeting coming up, but I really
I know that I made note of the one comment that Senator Taitaglia did bring up earlier on the accessible placards. So I just did want to share, though, Senator, that it is on our volume 8, and we do have it on our page 4 where it's indicated that there is a mail service for accessible placards. So for those individuals, of course, we recognize that they may need the accessible placard and they're not able to come in and make an appointment. You can actually get onto our volume 8. You'll see what the process is there. You could get our form off of our website, I believe, and we do accept payments. It's a postage payment, or again, if you're able to call us and we can figure out how we could get those to you, but there is a process already, and that is in our volume 8. Siduos Masi, Madam Chair, Siduos Masi to your committee, and thank you so much for your continued support, Senator Perez.
Thank you so much, Director Daphne and Deputy Director Michelle.
Thank you.
Really critical that, obviously, from the very start, I knew DRT needed assistance and infrastructure. We really need to build up this agency because in order to serve the public more efficiently. And you guys are doing such a great job in trying to handle and adapt to such changes and managing these huge programs. And so I do appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. But yeah, continue to make the progress and definitely reach out to the governor's office for more assistance. Because I think DRT is, we're dealing with a health crisis. I think DRT is critical to overcoming the economic crisis too. So it's the sister agency, I think, in this pandemic. So thank you so much. And definitely we'll keep in touch in regards to continuing the progress and any kind of legislative support, plan of actions. We'll definitely keep up to date on that. But thank you so much. We really need to go. We're adjourning this meeting. It's 11:23 a.m. The Committee on Environment, Revenue, and Taxation Procurement is now adjourned. Thank you, and please take care.
Thank you.